For 3 years, a family in Michigan screamed the same question into the silence. Where is Dee? They put it on billboards. They said it to reporters, to detectives, to anyone who would listen. Dee Warner, a wife and a mother and a businesswoman, had walked into her own home one spring night and simply never been seen again. Her children begged for answers. Her friends filed sworn statements with the court. The whole thing became a very public, very painful search for a woman who had seemingly vanished into thin air. But Dee Warner had not vanished. She had never left her own property at all. The entire time her family was pleading for information. The entire time they were staring at billboards and demanding action. The answer was sitting a short walk away from where she was last seen, on the family farm, sealed, welded shut, inside a steel tank. Hidden in plain sight on the very land her husband walked every single day. Let us start with who Dee was and the night everything changed. Deanne Warner was 52 years old. She lived in Franklin Township in Lenawee County, Michigan, out in farm country, where she and her husband, Dale Warner, ran their businesses together. To the outside world, they were a farming couple with land and machinery and a life built over many years. But behind the doors of that home, the marriage was not what it appeared. Dee's own daughter would later describe it as extremely toxic. There were allegations that Dale stalked his wife, that he had placed a tracking device on her car so he always knew where she was, and that there had been domestic violence. This was not a partnership, it was control. That single word, control, is the key to understanding everything that followed. A controlling man does not simply accept it when the person he controls decides to leave. Leaving is the ultimate loss of control, and for someone like that, it can feel unthinkable. Dee was not just ending a marriage. In his mind, she was taking away the things he believed were his. Her, the businesses, the life they had built, half of everything. For a man who tracked his wife's car so he would always know where she was, the idea of her walking out the door and out of his reach for good may have been the one outcome he was determined to prevent at any cost. And by the spring of 2021, Dee had decided she wanted out. She wanted a divorce. She wanted to sell the businesses the couple had built and start again, free of him. On the night of the 24th of April, 2021, Dee Warner was at her home on Munger Road, and according to those closest to her, that was the night she told Dale what she wanted, that she was leaving. She was never seen alive again. The next morning, Dee was simply gone. For a man to lose his wife overnight with no warning, you would expect panic, desperate phone calls, a frantic search. But that is not the picture that emerged around Dale Warner. To the people who knew Dee, and soon to investigators, his behavior did not fit the story of a bewildered, grieving husband. Suspicion fell on him almost immediately, and it never really left. Here was a woman in a controlling, abusive marriage who had just announced she was leaving and taking half of everything, who then vanished the very same night from the home she shared with the man she was leaving. To her family, the most likely explanation was obvious and terrible. But suspicion, on its own, is not a case. And this is the same wall that so many of these situations run into. Without a body, it is extraordinarily hard to prove that a murder even happened, let alone who did it. Dee was, on paper, a missing person. She could, in theory, have walked away from her life. And as long as no one could find her, that thin possibility was enough to keep her husband out of reach. So Dee Warner's family did something that many grieving families are forced to do. They refused to be quiet. They would not let Dee become just another missing person, a name in a file that slowly gathered dust. Her children and her friends filed sworn affidavits with the court, laying out their fears in detail. They spoke to the media. They kept her face and her name in the public eye. At one point, a billboard went up that openly pointed a finger at the husband they believed was responsible. A very public accusation that the man at the center of it could not escape. Their message was relentless and simple. Dee did not run away. Something happened to her, and the person who knows what is the person she was trying to leave. There is something worth pausing on here, because it runs against the way we usually imagine these cases. We tend to picture the family of a missing person as helpless, waiting by the phone, at the mercy of an investigation they cannot control. Dee's family was not willing to play that role. They turned their grief into a public campaign. They understood that silence was the killer's greatest ally, that the longer Dee stayed a quiet, forgotten missing person, the safer he was. So they made her impossible to forget. They forced her story in front of the public, over and over, and they aimed the spotlight directly at the man they believed had done it. In a case with no body and no easy proof, that refusal to be silent may be one of the reasons it never faded away into nothing. For 3 long years, that pressure did not let up. And for 3 long years, it was met with the same wall of silence. Dale Warner was charged in her murder even before her body was found, in late 2023, on the strength of the circumstances around her disappearance. That itself was a bold and unusual step. Prosecutors rarely bring a murder charge with no body because it is such a difficult case to win. A jury wants certainty. They want to know the victim is truly dead and how and where. Charging Dale Warner without Dee meant betting that the weight of everything else, the toxic marriage, the timing, his own behavior, would be enough to carry it. But a charge is not a conviction, and everyone involved understood how much stronger the case would be, and how much more it would mean to the family if Dee herself could finally be found. To truly close this, investigators needed the one thing they had never been able to reach. They needed Dee. The breakthrough, when it finally came, grew out of a single, chilling detail. Investigators developed a theory about how a person might make a body disappear on a large working farm, a place full of heavy equipment, industrial tanks, and the tools to modify them. The theory centered on welding. If someone had the skill and the equipment, they could seal a body inside a metal container so completely that it would look like nothing more than ordinary farm hardware. One more tank among many. And then they found something that turned that theory into a direction. Surveillance footage. Video that showed Dale Warner gathering welding equipment on the 25th of April, 2021, the day after his wife was last seen alive. Armed with that, the search changed. Rather than looking for a shallow grave or a distant dump site, investigators began looking closely at the tanks on the property. Specifically, they began searching for any tank that showed signs of having been opened and then re-welded shut. A container that had been tampered with, a seal that did not belong. It is worth appreciating how much patience a search like that demands. A working farm can be covered in tanks and drums and metal containers, ordinary equipment that no one would ever look at twice. To go across that property, examining them one by one, hunting for the single one that had been quietly opened and then sealed shut again, is slow, painstaking, unglamorous work. But it was built on a sound and chilling idea. If a man with welding skills wanted to make a body vanish without ever leaving his own land, this is very nearly the perfect way to do it. Hide it inside the most boring object imaginable. One more piece of farm equipment among dozens. The investigators followed that logic, patiently, all the way to its terrible end. On the 16th of August, 2024, more than 3 years after Dee Warner disappeared, state police executing a search warrant on Dale Warner's property found it. Inside a sealed tank, one that had previously been used to hold anhydrous ammonia, a type of fertilizer, were human remains. The tank had been resealed, welded shut, with a body inside. Dental records soon confirmed what everyone feared. The remains belonged to Dee Warner. She had been there the whole time. For more than 3 years, through every billboard, every plea, every public demand for answers, Dee Warner had been sealed inside a steel tank on her own family's land. Her husband had walked that property, run those businesses, and lived his life a short distance from where he had hidden her. Try to hold that image for a moment. A man stepping out onto his own farm every single day for 3 years, past the machinery, past the tanks, going about the ordinary business of the land. And one of those tanks, sitting there in plain view, held his murdered wife. He knew exactly which one. He walked past it. He built the rhythm of his days around it. He may well have stood on that very property, near the investigators and the cameras drawn by his wife's disappearance, wearing the calm face of a man with nothing to hide, while the truth sat sealed in steel a short walk away. That is a kind of coldness that is genuinely difficult to comprehend. What had been done to her was laid bare by the evidence, and later, by her own daughter in court. Dee had been badly beaten. She had been strangled. Her hands and her mouth had been bound with tape. She had been wrapped and then sealed away inside that tank, in what one person rightly called a cold steel tomb. This was not a moment of panic. It was a deliberate act of hiding, carried out with tools and effort and time. In March of 2026, Dale Warner finally stood trial for the murder of his wife. By then, the case against him was strong. There was the toxic and controlling marriage. There was the timing, a woman vanishing the very night she announced she was leaving. There was the surveillance of him gathering welding equipment the morning after. And now, at last, there was Dee herself, and the tank, and the undeniable fact that she had been hidden on his own property all along. On the 10th of March, 2026, a jury found Dale Warner guilty of second-degree murder and of tampering with evidence. On the 7th of May, he was sentenced. For taking Dee's life, and for the long, cold effort he had put into hiding her, he was given a term that could keep him in prison for up to 70 years. For a man of his age, that is, in every meaningful sense, the rest of his life. At the sentencing, Dee's daughter stood and spoke the truth of what her mother had endured, plainly and without flinching. She described how Dale had brutally beaten her mother, strangled her, bound her hands and her mouth with tape, wrapped her, and hidden her inside that tank, all while working to conceal the kind of man he truly was. Nothing a court could say or do would give Dee back or return the 3 years the family spent searching for a woman who was never lost, only hidden. But after 5 years, from the night Dee vanished to the day her killer was led away, they finally heard a courtroom state, out loud and for the record, what they had known in their hearts from the very first morning. Now step back and take in the whole shape of this case. Most of these stories turn on a killer who is never suspected, a stranger who slips away into the crowd. This one is different, and in some ways, more infuriating. Everyone suspected Dale Warner. His wife's family knew, the investigators believed it, the public looking at that billboard could see it. The problem was never a lack of suspicion. The problem was that he had hidden the proof so well and so literally that for more than 3 years, no one could put their hands on it. He did not flee. He did not need to. He simply welded the truth inside a tank and went on living beside it, betting that a body no one could find would keep him safe. And for a while, that bet paid off. What finally beat him was not luck, and it was not a confession. It was two things working together. A family that absolutely refused to let Dee be forgotten, who kept the pressure on for 3 unbearable years when simply giving in would have been far easier. And a set of investigators who thought carefully about how a killing could be hidden on a farm, followed a single detail about welding, and did not stop searching until they had checked the tanks he thought no one would ever open. Dee Warner wanted a divorce. She wanted to sell what she had built and walk into the rest of her life on her own terms. She had every right to that future, and it was taken from her in the one place she should have been safest, by the one person who was supposed to protect her. She spent 3 years hidden in the dark, on her own land, treated as a thing to be concealed rather than the person she was. But her family would not let the dark keep her. In the end, She was found and named and brought home. And the man who sealed her away and then stood by as those who loved her begged for the truth was made to answer for all of it at last.